Well, let's talk a little bit about the different components of the AI lab
Sure.
because I heard a number of them, so maybe we
Yeah.
can spread them out a little bit.
Okay.
One of the first ones I heard about was education or the Learn module.
Right.
What's different about the Learn module than just going to a meeting or
Right.
seeing a webinar or reading a journal article?
So, both of us give a lot of lectures on AI and what it is and how to use it. And as you give a lecture and someone leaves that, the next question they have is, what do I do? Where do I go next? And so the goal of Learn AI was to allow someone to experiment based on what they heard. So if what we've done is prepare a data set where someone can use that data set and actually put it into an architecture and create a model. And beyond that, they can actually try what's called hyperparameters, different little tunings of dials to try and make it more accurate or less accurate. So this will really handhold your way through taking data and turning it into an artificial intelligence model.
But you're not talking about writing code. I don't need to know Python to do this.
Zero lines of code would be shown. All of that is behind the scenes.
The next module that's part of the AI lab is called Define AI. And that is a way for radiologists to participate in use case development and even crowdsource use case development.
Right.
So what's happening within the AI lab for Define AI?
So as you said, Define AI is really defining what those use cases are. And let me just stop for a second and explain what a use case is with regard to artificial intelligence. What a use case does is it tells the developer or it tells the software what to focus on. That's the important case. So if, for example, I was looking for a liver lesion, then I would want to train the data to be able to see that liver lesion. So I would trace all those through my annotation. So that's following through the guidance that was created by that use case. So now there's use cases for all organ systems, subspecialties, for all different modalities, and someone has to be able to create those in a consistent way. Why do they need to be consistent? Because the ground truth annotation tool needs to be the same, because after the algorithm gets written, it needs to get evaluated the same way, and then it needs to get deployed into the clinical environment in the same way. So those use cases are going to be critical for the success of that algorithm to be accurate, as well as to be successfully deployed in the clinical setting.
So I sort of think of use cases a little bit in terms of taking human language, human concepts, but putting the structure around them.
Right.
So that we talk about inputs and outputs in the same way.
Right.
And basically converting human language to machine readable language. Is
Right.
that do I have that right?
I think we use use cases today, for example, when we acquire exams. So when we do a CT of the chest, there's certain parameters that we do that define exactly what that is. So when a patient moves from place to place, that's the same exam. That's what we're talking about with use cases when we use artificial intelligence. And so that use case, though, in AI can be used, as I say, to define the data set that's necessary, to annotate the ground truth, to test it afterwards, and to deploy it. And so then the question is, who's the best group of people to define what those use cases are? It's going to be clinicians and radiologists. And so how do you democratize that? Well, you enable radiologists and clinicians anywhere to be able to participate in the creation, review, editing, updates of all those use cases.
So when we talk about this structure, the AI lab sounds like a stack of components of software pieces all doing sort of different things.
Right.
And some of the things that AI lab does, potentially data aggregation, annotation, those tools may be already out there provided by other developers that may be already being used in clinical practice.
Right.
There may be a number of companies who will develop software solutions to do some of the things that you talked about, be it federated learning, transfer learning, those sorts of things.
Right.
What does the AI lab have the ability to integrate some of these solutions and will it be customizable for the individual sites so they can use some of these tools that they're already used to using and still want to use?
I think of AI Lab as essentially a reference implementation, a free way to be able to evaluate algorithms, to dabble around with the creation of algorithms, and actually possibly create algorithms, as you say, that you could then take to commercialization through regulatory processes. But I think what's going to evolve is industry is already talking about going to come in and integrate into this architecture, not just the platform, but the architecture, and use this as a reference implementation to be able to, like you mentioned, create better annotation tools, create better data curation tools, create better ways to look at architectures of different types inside of the AI domain to be able to then create models, evaluate them. So it's really, the goal is to not just democratize radiologists to experience AI, but allow vendors to actually be democratized and come into this platform so they can interchange and exchange.